Welcome back to the Rod Pedersen Show. That 99 Hamilton Tiger Cats team, I'm just looking at this roster here for a second. It was pretty impressive when you look at the guys on that team. From Darren Flutie to Corey Grant, Joe Mumford on that team, Danny McManus. I mean, the list goes on. That's a really good football team. Orlando Steinauer was on that team.
John Scott, Calvin Tiggle, I think was their middle linebacker.
Mike Moriali, of course, who we talked about. Lamar McGriggs.
Griggs was on.
Yeah.
Wow.
Eric Lapointe. Rob Hitchcock was on that team. Warren.
That sounds inappropriate, but that's his nickname.
That's his nickname. Saying, whoa!
Rob,
all right.
Sorry.
Warren Musica, who's now the Saskatchewan Huskies defensive coordinator and doing a great job there in Saskatoon. It's a good football team.
Yep.
And we're saying the best ever, so that's pretty good. That's Mike Abumetric. You can send your complaints to Mike Abumetric. I don't even know. Taylor Shire. Thinking of the old Tool Time, right? Tim Allen, when Al would always put up that's Tim Allen, care of Tool Time, and here's his address, so all the hate mail can go that way.
Bring it on.
Yeah. No, it was good. And thanks to Marshall Ferguson for joining us last hour. Great chat on the Ticats and also on the Yates Cup, McMaster and Western, coming up this weekend. The winner of that game will play the winner of Calgary, Saskatchewan, who are playing in the Hardy Cup, and that's the Mitchell Bowl, which will be next
How
weekend.
great that would be. Western coming to Saskatchewan to play. That was my last university game ever. We came here in '99. The University of Saskatchewan cheated every which way possible, and they made it snow 3 feet and froze the ground. What's this frozen ground? These city boys from Toronto don't understand that stuff.
Tough life. That's tough. But you got your revenge last year. Western beating Saskatchewan in the Mitchell Bowl out east. Last year. So. Potentially a rematch, but we've got lots to decide this weekend.
There's a lot of revenge. That was a big one.
Yeah, lots to decide before we get there for sure. Justin Duncan to join us next hour as well, along with Nick Alberga from Leafs Nation. So we'll get into some hockey talk next weekend or next hour too. But I want to get back to the Riders here, and we talked about their win and finishing first, and does this mean they're the best team ever, or are they part of that conversation? We've had some comments coming in on the Facebook wall, and I want to get to those too. Captain Harvey Ryder watching from North Battleford, the home port, he says, of Captain Harvey Ryder. So good morning, Captain, and thanks for joining us for coffee this morning. Corey says, I was the mascot for the Ticats the year the caretaker took over. Believe me, we were bad. Sometimes not getting paid on time. It was bad. To 15-3, that makes me believe my dad agrees, best Ticat team. So they think this might be the best Ticat team. Well, for Orlando Steinauer, 15 wins as a rookie head coach. That ties the record for most wins by a rookie head coach. But they're at least in the conversation because this team has some weapons.
We beat them.
But that's true.
My first game ever was October 10th, 1999 against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And we beat them in Winnipeg. Just saying. The greatest team ever.
You beat them.
Yeah, that's it. That's all
No
I'm
big
saying.
deal. And if it's the best Ticats team ever this year, the Riders beat them when they came in here.
Yeah. I mean, I want to go back. I didn't say this Riders team is the best team ever. They'll be in the conversation in the top 5 if they win the Grey Cup. Well, or top 6, I guess.
Yep.
09. But they have a chance to do something special.
The 09
and
team.
on paper, when you go through the roster and you look at the 07 team or the 13 team or the 09 team or the 66 team, you don't say, oh, look at this roster. Oh, it's stacked. No, but
You do in hindsight, though. So yeah.
Well, no, but that's why I'm not saying it's the best team on paper.
See, I felt like that last segment you switched my thinking into this is the best team ever.
Exactly.
Not without, there's no. I mean, Cody's might be the MOP, but there's not Darian Durant, there's not Corey Sheets, or are we just looking like those players were great? John Chick,
this is the best team.
Are great,
not the best group of players.
Yeah, and so it's almost like two conversations.
Yes,
but
the talent when you look at, and even with G. Roy Simon coming in and guys like that, like Dwight Anderson, like exactly, they were looking at the roster. Holy smokes, look at all this talent up and down the lineup. But this team. Everybody's bought in. Everybody's like, there's been no, it doesn't feel like there's been any rifts in the locker room or anything like that. There hasn't been a ton of adversity that they've had to face other than losing the quarterback at the start of the season, but
Yeah.
that seemed to work out just fine.
That worked out okay. It's funny you mentioned that. And I go back to Rob Vanstone's column from over the weekend. We talked about this yesterday, so I don't want to just rehash it, but it makes sense. And I want to talk about it with you guys because one of the things he talked about is, for the last number of years, the face of the franchise was really Chris Jones. He ran the show from the front office and on the field, but now it feels like the face of the franchise, excuse me, is Cody Fajardo.
And it's more spread out, a more humbler face rather than a more Saskatchewan face, if you will, than the in-your-face Chris Jones style.
It does feel like more of a community-owned team.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, there's a lot of transparency this year in terms of, who takes the blame for things and who gets the credit, and people are passing the credit around to other people. And
feels more like Saskatchewan's team.
But you know what it also is? I mean, it is. We started talking about it before and into they weren't supposed to win. So if they win, awesome. I want them to win, obviously. But if they don't, that's okay too. Because next year now they're gonna. This year they started 3rd, 4th in like the power rankings. Next year they start off on top, so there's that expectations to win. This year I don't feel that urgency to win because there's next year. That's not to say that I'm not cheering, nor do I want them, and I don't want to hear the comments saying that I hate everything. But I'm just saying like there's that patience because next year they're going to be better, and the year after that, this is like year one of something.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to win in year one.
Exactly. It's year one for a lot of these guys. Head coach, GM, quarterback. And so this offseason, regardless of what happens, Jeremy O'Day can put his stamp a little bit more by doing some roster tinkering, whether he brings in a couple of veterans from other teams or whatever he does, or does he try to keep this team the same?
Well, and that's where I want to go next with Craig Dickinson. Vanstone pointed out all these coaches, legendary coaches around here with Ron Lancaster, Jack Goda, Don Matthews, Cal Murphy, Chris Jones, Ken Austin. None of them finished in first place, but Craig Dickinson did. And whether it fell into his lap and whether the circumstances were different, he still finished in first place, still picked up 13 wins. That's the first time that's happened since 1970, 13 wins. So where does Craig Dickinson's season fit into the whole history of the Saskatchewan Roughriders?
I think you can just go back to what Marshall Ferguson said. We'll see at the end of the year. And just what we're talking about 2013 being the best team ever and naming everyone, all the stars on it. We're doing that in hindsight, Corey Sheets played here 1 year and if they don't win the Grey Cup, we're not talking about it.
If he's not the MVP, right? We're not talking about it.
Yeah, I like people think I played here 100 years. I played here 2 years. It was the best 2 years in Rider history. But it's easier to look back on things rather than to while you're in it to see what's going on. Win or lose, that 07 team was the greatest team that I've ever been on. The greatest. I will never say that it wasn't the most talented team ever, but there was
something about that team that just seemed special.
That it factor.
Yeah.
We weren't going to lose. And I think that's what they have here. I feel like everything that I'm trying to say positive about the 2019 Riders is coming out as a negative kind of twist, and it's not what I mean. The best team wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Dan. Thanks for having coffee with us, Caliber Coffee, this morning. Linda on the Facebook wall says, not the best team if you look at individual talent, but they play as a team and prop each other up on and off the field. There is a togetherness, win or lose as a team. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. I think that's what we're kind of getting at with this group. But if they don't win the Grey Cup, if they don't win, does that diminish what Craig Dickinson's been able to do this season?
No, it's a building block. And like Mike was saying, they're not expected to win, so if they don't win, it's not the end of the world, right? These guys are in long-term contracts, and this season is going to build them. If they don't win, it's going to make them know what to do differently next year in order to win, right? If they win, great.
I loathe that I agree with you. I loathe it. But, good job.
Yeah,
we'll get them next year.
But think about all the expectations coming into the season. They were pretty low. It wasn't win a Grey Cup. It was, okay, make the playoffs.
Yeah,
Let's see what we can do.
Great. We're not in here for tea and cookies, though. I hate that I agree with you. But you're given the best case scenario at home. get a week off. You're given everything. You're given everything that you could want. You can get, everything short of you can choose which team comes to you and then pick which players play from them. You have everything set up right. So to say it's okay not to, you've slanted the table and you've earned to slant the field in this direction. To say that it's okay if you don't win, that's a cop-out.
I think you have to win the West Final. The Grey Cup. I think this team will be judged on the win or loss in the Grey Cup. But I think you have to win the West Final at home with all the expectations.
Or else we blow it up.
Or no.
Fajardo's gone. O'Day, you're out of here, buddy.
That's it. Everybody's out.
But saying that, if they do lose the West Final, there's not going to be. Well, no.
I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. I'm just asking the question that I don't.
And I think I appreciate that. Going into the off season with all the change we've had over the last few years, it's nice to have the bit of stability to cover. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you were saying, the first place. Yeah, I don't want to say it fell in their lap because they worked their asses off for it. But it wasn't expected. It wasn't like Hamilton. They have 15. They ran away from everybody.
Yeah, it came down to the last 2 minutes of the game, right?
Yes, they could have finished third. They could have easily finished third. And that's if they finished third. Now they got an uphill battle. It's the same team. It's just they're so evenly matched. I think those three teams. That it is. We've been saying it for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's going to come down to home field advantage. So we've been saying what we wanted. We're saying what we wanted. Got to go and do it.
The poll question today, daily poll question for Capital Auto Mall Universal Collision Center. Will Ottawa be the only head coaching vacancy in the CFL? And we picked a bad poll question. 91.9% say no. Far too early to say it's going to be the only vacancy. But we're going to get into some of those candidates on the other side because Justin Dunk will join us to kick off hour 2 and where the pieces might fall. And I've seen, our friend Luke Mullender was on Twitter and he says, Rick Campbell's one of the best head coaches out there.
Where did his dad be famous?
That's where he's going to go.
Where?
Right? Surprise.
No.
But
there's no tampering going on.
But he says everybody's talking about Edmonton.
How dare you?
Why is Edmonton the only place we're talking about? Because Rick Campbell would be an upgrade almost across the board. Whether he mentioned BC, mentioned Toronto, he even mentioned Montreal. I think Kahari Jones is probably pretty safe.
But does Kahari want a different opportunity somewhere?
Yeah, but we don't know what Kahari wants.
Kahari's safe, but does he want to go somewhere else?
No,
Calgary, Saskatchewan, and Hamilton are the 3 safe teams. There could be 6 other moves.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
I would say Kahari's just about as he's up for. I think he's the only guy you can put against Dickinson for Coach of the Year. I think that's the only guy that can go against.
Well, Orlando Steinauer had a pretty good year too.
They were supposed to, they did, and he might win, but they were supposed to win.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure. Okay, that's fair. We'll get into that too. We can get into that on the other side too. So that's interesting. But it was just brought up yesterday, and I just instantly thought, I'm like, it's just going to be Rick Campbell in Edmonton, and Jason Moss is going to go to Ottawa, and everybody's going to be happy again. And he gets the promotion from offensive coordinator to head coach, basically in Ottawa. But Dave Naylor kind of he fanned those flames yesterday when we had him on in hour 1. He's like, that Jason Moss leaving Ottawa maybe wasn't the best situation. Didn't go over the best when he left to be a head coach. They might not want him, but he might not be welcomed back in Ottawa. So it'll be interesting to see. I thought that flip might just be natural.
I think it'll be tough for Moss to get a job right away.
But Brock Sunderland, Trevor Harris, Greg Ellingson, it just fits in Edmonton. But he said also, for Jason Moss, Ed Hervey's the guy who hired him. He's now in BC. Could Jason Moss move across the board? Maybe be an offensive coordinator in BC.
I think if we're betting here, I think Moss and Chamberlain. I got my house. I got the deed to my house to bet on those 2 guys not being back. I don't think there's a chance for those 2 guys to be back.
Good. We'll talk to Justin Dunk on the other side as well. That poll question is still up, and the text line is open. The Prairie Mobile text line at 306-840-8777. We got a couple of texts in here. Norway texting. The time zone, he says, is right. So we don't change our clocks in Saskatchewan. We just change our time zone. The show is always 10 a.m. to noon Mountain Time. Now we're 10 a.m. to noon Central Time. That's all we do. Some days we're friends with Alberta and Mountain Time, and now for the rest of the year we're going to hold hands with Winnipeg. Our friends in Winnipeg.
Sense. People change their clocks?
Yeah, we change our time zone.
What? That's crazy. Why did you change your clock?
We change our time zone. So
I'm not even going to start that debate.
So in Norway, the show now starts at 5 o'clock at night, 5 p.m. Okay, in Norway. He says, the time is right, and I predict Riders Winnipeg in the Western Final. Bombers defense should make life hard for Bo Levi. Go Riders. So there we go. And who else do we have here?
Linda made a comment about earlier on Facebook whether I thought guys in the locker room were saying, we're talented, but it's okay if we don't win. No, I'm not talking anything about the players. The players, whether you're first or last, you think you're going to win everything.
Metal Shingle guy on the Prairie Mobile text line. Not expected to win? ? First in the West, and we're not expected to win? 3 question marks? Then he follows it up with, sounds like Winnipeg.
At the beginning of the year, we were not supposed to win. No.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
3 question marks or exclamation points.
And Wayne made another comment prior. Think about where the Grey Cup is next year. Even if they don't win this year, there's promise, opportunity.
Well, that's what you build for, to win the Grey Cup at home, and that's what they've done. They've built to win next year, not this year. That's why I'm saying. But people are saying
they could arguably be a team of destiny if you want to. I don't want to call them that yet, but
yeah.
You're watching Rod Pedersen on demand. For more of The Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.